In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to perform basic edits in preparation for the full supercar retouching process. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video tutorial. We're going to be placing our image, our supercar image, into Photoshop and performing some basic edits, retouching a few areas to set the scene for the rest of the retouching process. So let's jump straight into Photoshop. The first thing we're going to do is just create our new document. So I'm just going to come in to create new, and then we're just going to set our document at, I'm going to look in millimeters here, and we want 297 the width, we want the height 210. We also want to make sure that our resolution is 300. This is very important to have a resolution of 300. You want that nice and high. This is for high quality artwork and image production. Anything lower, you're not going to have the quality. Around 72 is for the web, for example, so you really want to have this at 300 in your project. So keep that at 300 or increase that to 300. RGB color is all good. Background color doesn't really matter right now. We're going to be performing the full edits. So I'm going to go ahead and click on create, and that is going to create our document for us. Right. The next thing we want to do is we want to add the supercar to this canvas. So I'm just going to come up to File and Place Embedded. Now you can download these stock images below this video, so you just want to come and click Supercar Stock 1. So I'm just going to click that, and that's going to place it into our canvas. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter just to confirm that placement. Now the next thing we want to do is we just want to duplicate this layer. As with all the images, this is how I like to do it. All the images you add into your work file, you should duplicate. That way you always have a copy of the original. So I'm going to go ahead and press Command or Control and J on my keyboard, and that is going to duplicate that layer. Now we just want to right click on this top layer, and we just want to rasterize this layer so it's pixels. There we go, so that's looking good. I'm also just going to rename this top layer Supercar. Perfect. So that's all set up now. And the next thing we want to do is we want to perform a selection around the car. Now I'm going to go ahead and speed the video up whilst I perform this selection. But just to note, you want to make this a very precise, you want to be perfect with your selection. This is going to affect how the overall image looks. So go ahead, select the pen tool, and then you want to make your selection around the supercar. So I'm just going to go ahead and speed the video up. Okay, so we've made our selection with the pen tool. Next, what we want to do is we want to make sure we've got the pen tool selected with our path, and you just want to right click on the image, and then you want to come to make selection. Now we want to make a new selection. It's the only option available. We don't want to feather the radius. We're just going to select OK, and this is going to make the selection of our car. Now I'm just going to zoom in here just so you can see the areas that I've selected. Again, you want to be as precise as possible. This is a very important selection. It's going to form the basis for the rest of the retouching process. So make sure you take your time and you get all the edges perfectly. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and fit to screen there. And the next thing we want to do is add this selection to our layer mask. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the layer mask icon down in the corner here, and that is going to add our selection to the layer mask. I'm just going to turn this first layer off, and you will see that we are just left with the car. So that is a very precise selection there, and we will use this going forward. The next thing we want to do is just duplicate this layer. So we're going to duplicate the layer with the layer mask. Press Command or Control and J on your keyboard. That's going to create a copy. We're just going to move this below our layer, and we're just going to rename this layer Road. So So what we need to do is actually bring back part of the original image, part of this image. We want to bring back this concrete paving, sorry, this slabbed paving and this bush area here. So let's turn that original layer off, and we're just going to come to our image here. Actually, let's turn this layer back on so we can see better what we're selecting. Now you want to come in over here to the right of the image next to the hedge, and you want to select the pen tool again, and you want to make a selection along the edge of this bush. I mean, this can be fairly rough. Try and get it along the edge in line with the leaves. So I'm just clicking, keep clicking with the pen tool selected to create a very jagged edge, and go around the edges. You can see from the colors roughly where the edge of this bush is. Just want to keep going there. All the way to the car. Perfect. Now we're just going to click over here, and we're just going to come across roughly here. Obviously we don't want any of this Ford in the background, so we're just going to click roughly here. Command, Control and 0 is going to fit to screen, and I'm just going to click down here and then zoom out slightly. Just going to select the bottom, and then I'm going to join the path up there. Now I'm just going to turn this layer back off, the background layer. It's going to come up to our layer mask, over to our layer mask on the road layer, and we're just going to make a selection. So again, right click with the pen tool active, right click, and then we want to go to make selection, and we want a new selection. I'm just going to select OK there. Now we just want to reveal this part of the image, so we need to fill it on our layer mask with white. So we've got white as our foreground color. I'm just going to come up to edit and fill. I want a foreground color, and I'm going to select OK, and that is going to reveal that part of the image. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is just come in and we want to retouch parts of this image that maybe there is a few imperfections. So for example, in this bush you can see these branches. On the paving here you can see some imperfections. Now you want to make sure that you have these you want to make sure that there's no imperfections in any part of your image. You want to make sure everything is perfectly perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the clone stamp tool, and I'm just going to come and zoom in on the bush over here. Now the first thing I want to do is just remove these twigs that are sticking out from the bush. So with the clone stamp tool selected, we want to create a new layer above the road layer. We want to make sure that all of these are okay. We want to sample all layers, and then we just want to retouch these areas. So hold down Alt on your keyboard to sample an area, and then you simply want to click over to remove these imperfections. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove these. There we go, that's that one. So that's before, that's after, and the same again here, same process. You just want to remove that there. So that's before, that's after. Let's zoom out and have a quick look. So that's before and after. That's perfect, looking good. Right, the next thing we want to do is we want to actually remove any imperfections on the floor here. So you can see there's a little twig here, there's a little stone here. So again, with the clone stamp tool selected, what you want to do is just come in and remove all of these. So I'm going to go ahead, select Alt on my keyboard and click to sample an area, and then click over to remove. Perfect. Now it's probably best here just to zoom in so you can get a better idea of what you need to retouch. Oh, undo that. And I can see I want this branch removed, so I'm going to remove this one out. Again, hold down Alt, sample multiple areas to make sure you get a good edit. Perfect, right. If you hold down spacebar, it swaps to the hand tool, so you can quickly click and drag around your image and have a look about. So again, all these little imperfections. There's some green here in the paving, remove that. This slab, there's some discoloration. Now when you're performing retouching for these cars, this is the sort of detail that you need to go into. Everything needs to be absolutely perfect. It may be a little bit time consuming, but the final image will have no imperfections, which is what these companies are looking for. So again, in there, remove that part. In here, better. Have a look around. You can see there's a stain on the floor here. Sample the edge of the brick, perfect. Okay, let's move around. You can see there's an area there, let's just remove that. And I think that is looking good. Let's have one final check. This area here. Okay, perfect. So let's zoom out and turn that layer on and off. I'm just going to rename it quickly to Road Retouch. Always good to keep your layers nice and organized. So I'm just going to turn that off and back on. I'm just going to zoom in so we can see a little bit better. So let's turn it off. So this is before and this is after. So again, turn it off and on. You can see we've removed this branch in the bush there. Did see a little area. I'm just going to turn this off, back on. I can see this little area here where there's maybe a little bit more retouching is needed. So again, hold down Alt. Perfect. So that's a basic retouching of the road and the bush. So I'm going to go ahead and put the layer back on. There we go. And now what I want to do is I actually want to correct this area at the back of the car. So where we cut out the car from behind, we've got this blank area. So what we can do is we can actually take this section of the image, this bush and the curb, and we can duplicate that area and put it behind the car. So to do that, what we want to do is we want to come in to the bush area. I'm just going to come in, zoom in nice and close, and I'm just going to select the pen tool again, and we want to select the road layer. So we want to select the layer where this bush is actually present. So I'm going to come in. I'll tell you what, actually first I'm just going to make this edge a little bit blurred. So what I'm going to do on this mask, I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to select an area here so that this part of the image is hidden. So I'm just going to fill this area with black on our mask. So I'm just going to fill, just going to right click, make new selection, and there we go. And I'm just going to come over to our mask and I'm just going to fill that with black. Edit, fill with the foreground color, which is black. Okay, perfect. And now I'm actually going to perform the Gaussian blur, filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and let's drop this right down. A radius of about 2. Let's turn that off and back on. Okay, that's looking a bit better there. Let's try 3 just to see if we can improve that. So that's before and that's after. I think 2 is okay there. We don't want it too blurred or it's going to be obvious. So select OK. Okay, that's perfect. So let's come in and we want to make a selection. So we want to select as much as possible here to make sure we have as much image to play with to fill the area. Let's come down here. And we just want to make our selection there. Select OK. Okay, you can see my mask actually there turned red. That's because I held down Alt Shift and clicked on the layer mask there, which turns it red. So we don't want that layer mask to be red. What we want to do is we just want to come in and we want to press Shift, Command, Control and Alt on our keyboard. this is going to intersect with selection. So I'm just going to go ahead and click the layer mask there, and you're going to see that that is going to put our selection against the edge there of the bush. Now I'm going to hit Command or Control and J on the keyboard, which is going to put that selection to a new layer. We want to make sure that we're actually on the car layer here, not on the layer mask. So on the car layer, Command, Control and J. That is going to duplicate our selection to a new layer. Now I'm just going to rename this layer bush. Perfect. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this over to the left side of our image. Now obviously this doesn't fit, so we're going to have to scale it to fit. So I'm just going to press Command or Control and T, which is going to bring up the transform options. I'm going to right click and I'm going to flip that horizontally first of all. Now we can see that it's too large, so I'm just going to reduce the size there and reduce the angle slightly. You can have a little play around and see what works well. Now we can use the shadow that's already existing, so if we go in there we can see there is already partly a shadow from before, so we just want to make sure we get a good look there. So we actually want to come in and remove this edge. We actually remove this part, so we want to come in and make a selection here. I'm just going to add a layer mask to the bush layer. I'm just going to right click and make a selection. Okay, and we just want to fill our selection with black on our layer mask. So I'm just going to come to edit, fill, and we want the foreground color, and we're going to select OK there. Command, Control and D is going to deselect. So you can see now you want to get that in the right position, the bush layer, so just have a little play around and see what works there. So let's come in and maybe move this about, see if there's a better position. I think that's looking pretty good there. Maybe make it a little bit smaller. Okay, perfect, that's looking good. Now what we need to do is actually make this a little bit darker because it's in the background of our image. It's not going to have the same exposure as this bush here. So let's go in and we want to add a layer adjustment. We want to come in and select exposure. So let's select exposure there. Now the settings you want to use, you want to have a play around, but we want to set this as minus 0.5. Sorry, the first thing we actually want to do is we want to create a clipping mask here. So we only want this exposure layer to apply to the brush layer. So if you hold down Alt and hover between the two layers and click, it's going to add a clipping mask, which means this exposure layer is only applied to the brush layer. So if we turn this off and back on, you can see that this first edit here on the exposure has made a little adjustment. So now we want to select this at minus 0.5, 0.05, and then we want to have the gamma correction at 0.8. So let's look at that and see how we feel. You can play around and adjust accordingly. I think that looks pretty good. If we zoom out, we can see, okay, looking good. Just going to zoom out there so we can see our whole image. And the last thing we want to do is just to keep our document nice and tidy, we want to select these 5 layers. So supercar stock, road, bush, exposure and road retouch. We just want to add these to a new group. So let's add those to a group by clicking on the group icon. And then we just want to rename this background. Perfect. Okay, so that is how you place the supercar image into the design. We also performed some basic retouching. We cleaned up the floor, we duplicated this bush area just to set the scene for our retouch. One thing I am actually going to do is I'm just going to quickly increase the size of this so that it fits to our screen. So let's just increase the size there slightly. Just move this over. There we go. Perfect. Select enter. And that's it. That's how you perform all these basic edits. We're now ready to perform the rest of the retouching, which is a little bit more complicated, but I will see you in the next lessons to perform those edits. Thank you for joining me in this video lesson, and I will see you in the next one.